Hi, I am M. Jagadish, Associate Professor in CSC Department. Please watch my videos, like and share my videos, and subscribe my channel. Hi, in this section, we discuss about the C++ classes and data abstraction. Now, first we go to discuss about what actually a class is. In which manner we have to use the class in C++. We already know that one of the main feature of object-oriented programming language is nothing but a class. So here we just go to specify what is a class, in which manner we have to work with a class. Basically, class is nothing but the one which is used to combine the data and the functions together. Here we are going to bind the data and the functions together. When we specify the data and functions together, then we can call that particular one is nothing but a class. Once you define a class, then in C++ you have to create the object for a class. Now look at this particular one. Here, how to define a class and all those things. See, before going to discuss about in detail the definition and the syntax of the class, first of all, let me discuss about what is the data type of the class. See, we already know there are the different user defined data types, and those user defined data types are nothing but typedef, enum, structure, union, which we discuss in C. And then here we just go to discuss one more user defined data type, that is nothing but a class. Class which comes under the user defined data type only. Now we already have the user defined data type named as the structure. We know the difference between the structure and the union. The only major difference between the structure and the union is nothing but the way how we are going to store the values in the memory. The structure will create the separate memory for each and every structure member, whereas the union will create only one memory space for the entire union members, which has the highest union member size. Now, here we just go to specify the difference between the structure and union. By default, all the members in the structure are public, whereas in C, we already know all those things. How to access the structure members, how to define the structure, how to create the structure variable, all those things. Now come to the class in C++. By default, all the members in the class are private. This is a major thing. And one more difference, you can add two structure members, that is two structure variables, but you cannot add two class variables. These are the very basic differences between the class and the structure, remember forever. So when you just go to specify the difference, the first and foremost difference between structure and your class is, by default all the members in the structure are public. By default all the members in the class are private. We discuss what actually private and publics are. Then the next is, you can add two structure variables, but you cannot add two class variables, which is referred as the objects. Now here we just go to discuss about a class definition. Now here we are going to define a class by using a keyword named as a class and specify class name. Whatever the name that you want to provide, you provide the class name, and then open brace, which indicates this is the beginning of the class, and then close brace with semicolon, which indicates this is the ending of the class. So in between these two braces, you define the data members and the data functions. Now here we are defining data members and data functions. Now what is mean by a data member and a data functions? Data member is nothing but a variable in which we are going to store the data. But in C++, according to class, we cannot specify that is a variable. We have to call that is a data member. Why? Because means it is a member which is used to store a data. And similarly, data functions. We already know what actually a function means. It is going to perform a particular task. So it is going to perform a particular task on the data. So which we can represent it as data functions. So here in the class, you can declare and define data members and data functions in different categories. Those are nothing but based on access specifiers. This private and public are nothing but the access specifiers. You can declare any number of data members under private. You can declare any number of data functions under private. Similarly, you can declare any number of data members and data functions under public. What is the difference between this private and public means? When you declare any variable under the private, you cannot access from outside of the class. When you declare any data member in the public, you can access from outside of the class also. This is a major difference. The way how you are going to declare the variable either in private or in public. Once you declare the member, once you declare the variable in private, you cannot access from outside of the class. Once you declare a data member or a variable under public, you can access from outside of the class. And by default, if you are not specified any access specifier, then it becomes under private. If you forgot to write this access specifier either private or public, you didn't specify anything, then automatically all these data members and data functions will come under private. If you specify public, then it will come under the private public. So this is the way how we just go to define a class. Now we'll go to specify whatever we discussed, all those things are here. Same thing, variables declared inside a class, what I specified recently. Variables declared inside a class definition are nothing but data members, and functions which I declared inside a class is nothing but member functions. Recently we discussed. And one more thing, the combining or wrapping of data and functions together into a single unit, which we can call as a class, together into a single unit is known as data encapsulation, which is one of the object-oriented programming feature. And I already specified by default, the data members and member functions of a class are private. And private data members can be accessed by the functions that are wrapped inside a class, the functions which are defined under public. So this is related to the way how we are going to access data members or data functions which are there in a class. Now we'll go to the example. Look at this particular one. Here we just go to specify the example. I am defining a class by using a keyword that is nothing but a class, and then I just go to specify the name of the class. Here the name of the class is nothing but rectangle, and I specify the curly brace which indicates the beginning of the class, and then I just go to specify the keyword private to declare the data members width, length, area under float data type or by using float data type. And then under the public, I just go to declare the member functions. One is nothing but set data, calc area, get width, get length, get area, and then closing of a class. Simply curly brace, closing curly brace, semicolon. Thereby the class terminates. Simply, this is the way how to declare the class in C++. Earlier you defined the structure in C. The same thing happens, but the thing here is instead of structure, here we are using a class. And additionally, we have to specify as a specifier. Those are nothing but private and public. And you know already the variables, all those things. And then come to the next one. Access specifiers, I already specified. Now, here we are using two access specifiers. Those are nothing but private and public. Private means which can be accessed only by means of member functions. From outside of the class, we cannot access. By means of member functions only, we can access. Public means you can access from outside of the class also. You can access from outside of the class also. This is the difference between private and public access specifiers. And by default, the access specifier of a class is private. But for a good programming practice, you can keep to specify the access specifier as private explicitly. And this is about the access specifiers. Now, after this one, look at the definition of member functions. How you are going to define a member function. The defining of a member function is in two ways. You can define member function in two ways. One is inside the class and one more is outside of the class. Inside of a class is done as usual, how you define a function normally in C++ or in C. But when you are going to define a member function outside of the class, then definitely you have to use the operator named as scope resolution operator, two colons, scope resolution operator. Now look at this, how we are going to define a member function outside of the class. In order to define a function outside of the class, first of all, you have to use the return type, return data type. That is nothing but here the return data type is nothing but where that indicates this function set data is not returned any value. So return data type is void, and I just go to specify in which class the function is. So void is a return type, then I have to specify a class name. The class name here is rectangle, and then scope resolution operator, then set data. This is the name of the function, and for this function I am passing two parameters w and l with the data type float, and this is nothing but simply beginning of a function. In this I simply assign w value to width, l value to length, and then closing of a function. So this is the way how we are going to define a member function outside of a class. So to define a member function outside of a class, simply we have to use these things. Then go to the next one, how to declare the object or how to create the object. The object we can also refer with one more, that is nothing but instance of a class. So here I just go to specify, we are going to create the object. When once you define the class or when once you specify a class, then definitely in order to work on the member functions or on the data members, definitely you have to create the object. Here, this is the step which is used to create the object. The name of the object here is nothing but box. I am creating the object box for the class rectangle. So to this rectangle class, I am creating the box object. Now, after creating this box object, the main purpose for the box object is to create the object is we just go to access the data members and data functions. For that purpose, we are creating the object. And you may have a doubt what actually the object is practically. See, object is nothing but real world entity. Now, what is meant by this real world entity? One more question you may arise. What actually real world entity means? For example, assume now you want to write some information on your white page. So when you go to write some information, some data on the white page, then definitely you have to choose the pen. By means of the pen, you are going to write the data on the white page. Here, the pen is nothing but object. With the pen, you are writing the data on the page. Similarly, here also, with the box, I am accessing the data member or the data function in the class. And similarly, when you just go to write something on the board, then ultimately I have to use piece of chalk to write data, to write some information on the board. Here, the piece of chalk is nothing but the object. Similarly, when you just go to theater to watch the movie, to enter into the theater, then definitely you have to purchase the tickets, movie tickets. The movie ticket is nothing but the object. With that object only you are entering into the movie theater. The ticket is the object which makes to you to enter into the theater to watch the movie. So this is nothing but the one which specifies or defines object is nothing but a real world entity. Now we created the object, like box is the object for a class rectangle. Now whatever the data members or data functions are there in the rectangle class, now I want to access. To access the data member or data functions in the rectangle class, then the way is, first of all we have to use object, and then we have to use dot operator, object and dot operator. So box dot and name of the function calc area. Now with this here I am accessing a member function calc area by means of the object name and dot membership operator. With this I just go to access the function clearly. So this specifies how to create the object and how to access the data member or a data function by means of object. Now you can also create the pointers to object, not only a normal object. See, pointer to the object means here I am creating a pointer. Now this is nothing but a pointer object to the class rectangle. Now this is nothing but a normal object. So sorry, this is nothing but a pointer object and this is nothing but a normal object. When I create a pointer object, then definitely I must specify the address. This is a very common. When I am using pointer, then definitely I must specify the address of another object. So box box ptr is equal to ampersand box. Now this is the pointer object. So if you want to access any data member or data function by means of pointer object, then definitely we have to use arrow operator. By means of arrow operator, we are going to access data function which is there in the class. This is the way how we just go to create pointer object and how to access the data member by means of pointer object. Now this is nothing but simply a program which demonstrates how to define a class and how to access the data members and data functions in the class by means of objects. Now look at this here, I just go to find the area of a rectangle by means of a class program. So I am creating or defining a class by means of a keyword class, and the name of the class is nothing but rectangle. Opening a class and then private. Under the private I am defining three data members: width, length, area of a float data type. And under the public I am declaring, not defining, I am declaring set data function, calc area function, get width, get length and get area. I am declaring all these functions and I am closing the class. So this is the way how we just go to specify the defining of a class. Now after defining of a class, I just go to define the member functions also. So to define a member functions as usual, now I am going to define the member functions outside of the class. So when I am going to define a member function outside of the class, first I have to specify the return type of a function. It is a set data function, return type is void, and that set data function is there in the rectangle class. So I have to specify the class name rectangle, then scope resolution operator, then set data function with two parameters. Simply assign w value to width and then l value to length, then close the function. So the next again I just go to define calc area function. Return type is void and the calc area is under rectangle class. It is not taking any parameters, so void data type. In this function I just go to calculate the area. So area is equal to width into length, then close the function. Now this is the way how to define the functions outside of the class. Then next, now still we have some other functions. Get width, again I am defining outside of the class. It is returning the float data type. It is there in the rectangle class. Scope resolution get width function. data type is void because there we are not passing any parameters. It is returning. So I'm using a statement return. What it is returning means which value it is returning. Similarly, get length function I am defining. Return type is float. The function is in rectangle. Now I am asking a function get length in the rectangle class by using of scope resolution operator. So this function is returning. So when I am specifying it is returning, I must specify return statement. Return. What it is returning means length it is returning. Length value it is returning. And then get area function same as it is. It is returning float data type. The function is in rectangle class. And I am asking a function by means of scope resolution operator. Why? Because the get area is in rectangle class. So it is returning a value. So I must specify return statement. What it is returning means it is returning area. So this is the way how we are going to define the classes outside of the class. Then after that, come to the main function. Up to it, we define a class, we define the member functions outside of the class. All these things are nice. Now we move to the next one. Now look at this. When we just go to execute those operations, then definitely as like C in C++ also, the execution starts from main onwards. So main, which indicates the beginning of the program. Here I am going to create the object box for the class rectangle. Now I am here, I just go to specify two data members, wide and long with the data type float. Now here I just go to specify, I want to calculate the area. So I want to enter the width value. So with C in, I am entering wide. With the C out, I am entering the, with C out, I just go to print what is the length, and with C in, I am entering the long value. Now I am calling a function set data. So the wide value and long value will be passed to the function set data, and I am executing set data by means of object and dot operator. Similarly, I just go to call calc area. So in order to call the calc area, box dot calc area. So this is the way how we just go to work with these functions, executing the functions. And the cout which is used to print, simply here is the rectangle data which will be appeared on the output screen. Whatever the information that is there in the inverted commas, that information will be displayed on the output screen as usual. Cout is meant to print data on the output. Again width which will be displayed. So box.get width means it will get or it will display the width value. Similarly length. This is a function which is used to return the length value which will be displayed on the output screen by means of cout statement, same as it is area also. So box.area. And at last close the main function. Thereby the program terminates. This is the way how we are going to execute one normal simple C++ program. Then this is the program output. So when we just go to execute a program, whatever the statement that is there in cout, that will be appeared on the output screen like this. It is asking what is the width. Now 10. I am entering the enter key, pressing enter key. Now again it is asking what is the length. I am entering 5. Again I am pressing enter key. Then it is displaying here is a rectangle data, width 10, length 5, area is 10 into 5, that is 50. So this is the way how we just go to execute a program in C++. Then apart from this, now array of objects. Up to it, specify we discuss what is meant by the class and how to define a class and how to define or declare the object for the class and how to access the data members and data functions of the class and execute the program, all those things. In the earlier program, we specify the creation of the object, means we are creating only one object. So with only one object, we are asking the values like width and length by passing the values. So it creates one copy. If we want to create multiple number of copies of the same class by single object, for the first copy, whenever the program terminates, ultimately it will be erased whenever we enter second copy values. Why? Because means we have only one object. So the last values will be erased and the latest values will be stored. But now my requirement is last values will be there and the latest values will also be displayed. So whenever I want to specify the multiple number of values of the objects, then I just go to specify array of objects, not only a single object. Here I just go to discuss array of objects, which is used to specify multiple number of objects. So when I just go to specify number of objects, now look at this particular one. I am going to create multiple objects, not only a single object of the same data type, of the same class, not for the different classes. For a single class, I am creating multiple objects. Now look at this. Simply, I am defining a class with the keywords class and then open brace beginning of the class and specifying name with the char data type and age with integer data type in the private mode. In the public, I specified get data function and put data function. Thereby, class terminates. So simply in the class, I am defining two data members and declaring two member functions. Now, come to the function definition. Now here, I just go to define a function get data, and the return type is void, and the get data is there in employee class. So simply, I define the class outside. So I'm using scope resolution operator. Simply here I just go to enter the name and age by means of cout. It will be displayed on the output screen. With cin statements, I am entering name and age. Again, I am going to define put data, which is there in employee class. Return type is void. I am defining outside of the class. So scope resolution operator, and then by means of cout, I just go to display the name and age on the output screen. So these two functions are used. One is used to enter the name and age, and one more is used to display the name and age on the output screen. So this is the way how we just go to work with functions and defining with the functions. Now come to the main program. See, my intention is I just go to create array of objects, not only a single object. If there is only E, there is no file. If there is only E, that indicates it is only one object. It creates only one object. But here I don't want to create only one object. I am going to create array of objects. So when I am going to create array of objects, then the array of objects will be created like this, E of a file, which indicates E is the object of the class employee, which is going to create 5 copies, 5 objects, E1, E2, E3, E4, E5 of the employee class only. Now this is the normal variable. See the difference between the object and the normal variable. Now with the normal variable, I just go to execute the for loop. I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, which indicates that the loop will execute up to 5 times. E of I dot get data. Whenever I value is 0, E of 0 dot get data means for the first time it is executing get data function and it is reading the employee name and age. Then I plus plus. I plus plus will execute. So whenever I plus plus executes, the I value will becomes 1. Whenever I value will becomes 1, again it is checking whether 1 is less than 5 or not. If it is true, then again it is going to execute E of I dot get data, that is E of 1 dot get data. So again I am entering name and age of employee, second employee. Then I plus plus. I value will becomes 2. Again 2 less than 5. So again I less than 5. Yes, true. So again it is executing E of I dot get data. E of 2 dot get data. Again executing name and age by means of get data function. So likewise this function will execute 5 times. And similarly, again I am using for loop construct in order to execute put data function 5 times, which is used to display 5 employee names. Then thereby at last closing the main function. So this is the way how we are going to work with array of objects. Array of objects. Now the output will be like this: enter name and age. So I'm entering the name and age for the first employee, then for the second, third, fourth, fifth, and at last all the employees information will be displayed on the output screen. So this is the way how we just go to specify or work with array of objects. Now here we execute the program which demonstrates a class. How to define a class and how to declare the data members and how to declare the data functions, and at last close the class. We recently discussed about this program. Now we'll go to execute the same program, how the program will execute. Now this is nothing but the way how to define a class. Now we also look about how to define the class data functions outside of the class. Now look at this. Here we just go to define the data functions of the class. Define the data functions of the class outside of the function. Here the data function is nothing but set data, which is in the rectangle class, and also one more data function calc area, which is in the rectangle class, and also get width, which is in the rectangle class. All these are nothing but the data functions which are declared in the class. Now here we defined the same data functions outside of the class, and at the same time, after the completion of defining the class data functions outside of the class, one more is nothing but get length and get area. Then after defining the data functions of a class outside of the class, then we just go to execute the program from main onwards. Now this is nothing but the main function as usual. The C++ program also starts the execution from main as C. Now here we are creating the object for the rectangle. Rectangle is nothing but a class. We are creating the object for the rectangle class and declaring the normal variables wide and length. Here we are providing the input for the wide and length, and we are calling the set data function by using of object and dot operator, and similarly we are calling calc area function by using of object and dot operator, and we are printing all the information on the output screen. Now we will execute the same program. How the program will execute? Now we just look at this one. Now we start the program. Now we are executing the program. Here we just go to provide the input. What is the width at the bottom? Now here I just go to specify the width is 30. Then it is asking the length. The length is nothing but 50, for example, assume. Now enter. Now here is rectangles data. Now look at this particular output screen. Now it is specifying. Here is rectangles data. Width is 30, what we have provided as the inputs, and length is 50, what we have provided as the inputs, and it is calculating the area of rectangle, that is nothing but 30 into 50, which is nothing but 1500. So this is the way how we just go to run the program. We just go to execute the program. Now look at this one again. We just go to execute the same program with the different inputs. Now here I am running a program. It is asking the outputs again. Now what is the width? Now for example, assume here I just go to provide 100 is the width, and similarly what is the length? I am providing 200 as the length. Now again look at this. What is the length? That is the what is the here is the rectangles data. Here we just go to specify the rectangles data. Width 100, length 200, and area 20,000. 100 into 200. So this is the way how we just go to execute the program, which specifies or which demonstrates the class.